Well, I'm so happy to be here in beautiful Ilium, small intestine USA for our second town hall debate of this election. Sarah Salmonella, thank you for joining me here.
Thank you, Baraka Rotavirus. It's certainly a pleasure to be here with the remaining citizenvilli of the beautiful town of Ilium. I'm looking forward to clearing up this runny mess, unjust and what has brought so much destruction and economic loss to this calf's tubular town.
As do I, Sarah. As do I. Okay, let's get down to business. Gary Goblet from Mucocutaneous Junction wrote in to ask, I've seen so many of my neighborvilli become damaged and die. Without my neighbor's help, I can't keep up all the work of this small intestine town. Can anyone tell me what has happened to my villi neighbors and how we can get this town back on its feet?
Oh, Gary Goblet, that is an excellent question, and I sure do have some answers for you, you betcha. As for the loss of your neighbors, you can thank the current rotavirus administration for coming in and mucking things up in this cute little cow's bowels. That sneaky double-stranded RNA virus snuck in the mouth of this innocent little critter and ended up down here in the small intestine infecting enterocyte citizens. Once those enterocytes are infected, old rotavirus produces nasty virulence factors, the big one being rotavirus enterotoxin. That virulence factor is then secreted into your once beautiful lumen and binds to other citizen enterocytes to disrupt calcium-dependent chloride channels. All these disrupted Joe six-pack enterocytes just can't get their normal work done of absorbing nutrients and water, and who can blame them? It's time for a new direction for this country and for Baraka Rotavirus to get moving.
Whoa. Where's the stopwatch? Sarah Salmonella certainly has a lot to say. Governor Salmonella would have you believe rotavirus is the only pathogen in this tattered town. What she is leaving out, folks, is that those smelly scours wouldn't be half as runny if it weren't for Sarah Salmonella and her Enterica species party coming down here and getting into our business. Oh yeah, they probably got in by hanging out in the environment for a few months before showing up in this poor calf's food or water. And once those salmonella bacteria got in, boy did they have a heyday mucking things up for the members of this intestinal institution. Especially for the M cells and other lymphoid members of Ilium.
What a bunch of liberal propaganda. Baraka Rotavirus is way out of touch with Main Intestine Street.
That facultative intracellular bacteria slips into your epithelial neighbors' households by using pathogenicity islands to attach to their plasma membranes, and force your neighbors to phagocytose them. Talk about Big Brother, folks. Then it will protect itself inside your lysosomes by altering their membranes and producing cytotoxin, enterotoxin, and endotoxin. Along with a raging case of gastroenteritis, salmonella infection results in an increase in CAMP-mediated hyperosmotic secretions into the lumen. And you know who's gonna follow, don't you? That's right. Water. Gary, you can thank Sarah Salmonellosis for those runny scours. Folks, it's time for a change. A change in who we blame for those drippy diarrheas.
Change? Ha! I'll tell you about change. Old Baraka Rotavirus and his progressive pathogenic administration changed the epithelial integrity of the intestinal mucosa, so much so that any old secondary bacterial infection is just bound to set in. It's not just those nasty enterotoxins, but virion release into the lumen causes lysis of the cell in which they're replicated. But enough about that. It's time to talk about economics, folks. Our next question comes from farmer Francine, who's worried about our compromised calves. Francine writes, so many of my cute little calves are drippy and dehydrated. Because of those nasty scours, they just aren't growing up to be as big as their siblings. And I can't sell them for nearly as much as their healthy herd mates. How do I know which candidate will ease some of this economic loss?
I'll take this one, Governor. Farmer Francine, even if some scours came about during my administration, they don't cause nearly as much damage as the Salmonella party brings into the equation. In the Baraka Rotavirus administration, we have been very careful to lay out a complete and transparent budget. Sure, there is some diarrhea and a little dehydration as a result of our infection, but that pales in comparison to the financial loss the Salmonella party causes when they are an active participant in concurrent infection. For example, Since the Salmonella Party has controlled Congress while the Rotavirus administration has been in the White House, diarrhea, fever and enteritis has severely worsened to the point of bloody stools, loss of appetite, dementation and even death.
Lies, folks. It's impossible to find an honest pathogen in Washington.
I'll tell you what, when the Salmonella Party gets in here it causes prostaglandin and pro-inflammatory cytokine release, increasing vascular permeability as well as that hypersecretion I told you about earlier. Sloughing of these inflamed intestinal epithelial cells leads to acute hemorrhage. And Farmer Francine, you're gonna see blood and fibrin in that poo. This could cost an honest farmer such as yourself at least $35 less for each calf at market and potentially a lot more. Believe me, this intestine does not want Sarah Salmonella and her mucosal mavericks sticking around this town.
Well, folks, I'd love to talk to you about this topic, but once again the Rocca rotavirus has talked all the time away. Words are cheap, you betcha. We have to move on to our last question from Pete Pilley from the Plaquet just down the road. Pete wants to know more about the candidate's stance on healthcare. Pete asks, what can our cows do to prevent calf scours and prevent both of these candidates from interfering too much in their lives? Pete, the best way to keep the Baraka rotavirus administration out of your business is by administering an inactivated intramuscular rotavirus vaccine to your pregnant cows, just a few weeks before parturition. You'll also want to make sure those baby bovines get lots of milk from their moms, so they can be sure to get maternal antibodies present in colostrum. Doggone it.
Pete, let me be clear, colostrum is very important in preventing both rotavirus and salmonella, but let's not lose sight of the fact that good hygiene and herd management is essential for keeping salmonella contamination at bay. Don't forget that aside from manure, salmonella can be shed in saliva, nasal secretions, urine and milk. Keep those cows clean. And folks, do me a favor, if you find cows in your herd infected with that sneaky salmonella, keep those critters away from your healthy ones. Now, if you have some really bad off bessies, you can have your veterinarian run a culture and sensitivity from a stool sample and treat with antibiotics, usually ampicillin, ceftiofur, or trimethoprim-sulfonamide combinations. But be careful with those calves, because subtherapeutic levels of antibiotics can turn a bad case of squirts worse.
Well, time's up, but don't forget, a vote for me is a vote for our 2 Salmonella species and their 2,400 serotypes, not to mention our forefathers. Let's put this intestinal country first.
Vote for me. It's time to move forward.
Drill, baby, drill.
Hope and change, people.